Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Brandwatch webinar. And my name is Brit Ferguson.
And you've got Kelly Autenrieth here.
And today's webinar, we are going to be talking about influencing that moment of truth. So how to utilize social insights and social data for product marketing.
Okay, so as we're getting set up here, just to let you know that we are going to be recording the session, so we've got that started now. Just to give further background on who we are. So like Britt said, my name is Kelly Autenrieth. I lead the user adoption team for North America. So my main role and my team's main role is making sure that all of our clients feel empowered across our different products. So teaching all of our clients everything from the fundamentals to getting exactly what you're looking to do with your business needs and how Brandwatch can help tailor and match and support those.
And my name is Brit Ferguson, and I am an account manager here at Brandwatch. I work specifically with brand clients, so working with them on how to effectively utilize social data for the various parts of their business. So whether they're just looking to look at brand health, crisis management, maybe some product marketing, content strategy, so all the different ways that social data can be relevant to your business needs. One thing we just want to flag is definitely don't be shy. We love your participation. So we would love to have, if you guys have any questions, feel free to tweet at us at Brandwatch, use the hashtag BrandwatchTips, and also please feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll be having a full Q&A at the end, so we'll be happy to answer any of those questions that you have throughout today's webinar. So a little bit about Brandwatch. So just mentioned here, we were cited as a leader in this year's Forrester Wave as an enterprise social listening platform. So along with that, we have 1,200 plus clients, within 20 plus international markets. So those clients consist of brands, agencies, and to the right there, you can see some of our largest brand clients that we have here within Brandwatch. I know within Brandwatch, we really do pride ourselves on customer satisfaction with a 98% rating through our customer surveys that are sent out on a quarterly basis. And then over 30% of our client base is actually within Fortune's top 100 brands. So that is really just shows kind of the level of clients that we're working with on a daily basis. And we have 300 plus employees that's here in our New York office, but also globally in the UK, Germany as well. So you can see some of those international offices are listed down at the bottom.
Fantastic. So we're going to kick it off just with an agenda today, letting you know what we're going to be speaking about. So first, we're going to define the moment of truth. On my next slide, I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that is, but it really is going to be a main focus for our talk today. We're going to describe throughout the presentation your consumers' actions plus your strategy for how you can influence this cycle, this moment of truth, the buying pattern, the buying purchasing decisions. So your consumers' actions might seem something that's separate from what you do, but all along the way, we're going to talk about the stimulus, the zero moment of truth, the different points of contact that you'll have with your clients, and the best ways that you can interact and make sure that you have a hand in that purchasing decision. We're also going to support that with how you can visualize these different data points if you happen to use Brandwatch. So we're going to go through maybe an idea or just start to brainstorm some key takeaways that if you happen to be logged into Brandwatch right now, you can go ahead and do yourself. We're also going to support it through identifying successful brands. So there are some really fantastic use cases and prime examples that we're going to talk about, brands that are doing this well. And lastly, like Britt said, we're going to have a recap and Q&A at the end, so please keep those questions coming. We're going to have that chat window open and go to webinar, so we look forward to hearing you at the end. Okay, so to dive into that moment of truth a bit more, I'm sure this is something that many of you have already done today. So the moment of truth is that critical point in a consumer's decision. Do they choose your brand? Do they choose a competitor? Or do they choose nothing at all? Well, we certainly hope it's not the last point. We hope it's the first one, that they choose your brand. So that moment of truth could be something that is decided upon a couple minutes ago, a few days ago, months worth of researching and decision making, or even a years long decision. So we want to go beyond that initial point of deciding if it's your brand, the competitor, or nothing at all, and how you can influence this moment of truth along the way. Courtesy of Google, we're going to be referencing the 0 moment of truth. So as marketers, you may be familiar with that moment of truth already, but here we're going to talk about that 0 moment of truth. So initially, it all begins with a stimulus, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. Previous to this model, we had the first moment of truth and the second moment of truth. So the first moment of truth would be that a consumer would go to the place of the product, whether that was a store, a stand, a large organization, and they would actually go and interact with the product, understand the product, talk with a customer representative. And then the second moment of truth would be that feedback point. So the post-purchase, how are they experienced with the product so far? Well, with the influx of social data, we now have something that precedes the first moment of truth, and that's the 0 moment of truth. It's that pre-shopping phase. And this is something that we can all relate to, whether we take ourselves in our brand perspective, our company perspective, or what you do just in your own lives. So it's that pre-shopping phase. We want to be able to get into that phase much more heavily with social data and to use that to our advantage. People doing researching that product, talking to friends, seeing influencers online, looking at trending stories. So of course, before we even get to that point, we do want to address the stimulus phase, and we'll get to that in a couple of slides.
Perfect. So I'm not sure how many of you online right now recognize the lovely DJ Khaled we have in this slide, but how we're going to be breaking down the remainder of today's webinar is, like Kelly had mentioned, we're going to be looking at what actions consumers are doing versus what you as a brand, what your strategy should be in place to influence that purchasing cycle for consumers. So we're going to go through a hypothetical buying situation, and we're going to focus in on what consumers are doing, what actions are they taking before they're making a purchase. So whether that's a split-second purchase in the store, or if it's a more longer-term thought-out purchase that they invested more time in. So what are those steps the consumers are taking on one end, and then that's the they, and then there's the you as the brand. So what should you as a brand be doing to stay ahead of your consumers? So a lot of people think of the they as what your competitors are doing, what's the market doing. I always like to advise my clients to don't focus on staying ahead of your competitors, don't focus on staying ahead of the market, focus on staying ahead of the consumer. They are the people that are eventually buying your product, being the brand advocate, and representing your brand within the industry. So obviously a lot of brands come to me with some traditional use cases around social data, such as they want to see what people are saying about their brand, about their competitors. They want to see how their campaigns are being responded to online. But today we're going to go through some non-traditional use cases. So how you can do more things around product development, content strategy and planning, doing some white space searches for the industry. Making sure brands are having that strategy in place to stay ahead of the consumer.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the stimulus phase now. So first we need the consumer to identify a need. So this could be something as simple as when you wake up in the morning, at least for me, I need a cup of coffee. So am I going to go to my usual coffee place, which is on my route to work, or maybe it's nice out, I want to take a couple extra minutes to walk to work, so I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of a detour. So identifying that need for a product, whether it's as simple as a cup of coffee or maybe replacing a washing machine or buying a new car, something that a little bit more of an investment piece, although coffee is becoming very expensive today, so you might want to consider that too. So our stimulus is going to be identifying that need or a want. So it can be something as simple as being self-sufficient, grabbing a cup of coffee, or it can be something where you see your friends or your family with a new product that you didn't even know existed before. So it's going to be identifying that need that brings us to our example we'll be referencing today.
So you may be wondering what this is, and obviously right here, it is a children's playground. So this is the product that we've chosen to kind of walk through today, and seeing how a brand like a playground manufacturing company can influence the purchasing cycle of a consumer. Today's consumers, will just name them as Bill and Betty, their parents looking to buy a playground for their two kids. What's the cycle that they're going through to make this purchase, and what could a brand such as this playground brand be doing to affect overall and having Bill and Betty eventually choose their product? So let's get started, and we can go in through the first phase of when the search begins. Bill and Betty have already decided they're buying this playground for their kids. So what are they doing in order to start this decision of what they're going to buy? So they're possibly going online. They're searching for various playgrounds online, maybe coming across some niche forums, niche blogs, and review sites, seeing what the conversation is like, what brands are popular, what components of a playground are kids looking for. Then they're maybe asking other parents. So what have other parents in the neighborhood, what have they purchased for their kids? What are some tips that they're giving in terms of where to purchase, when to purchase? And then they're starting to identify those various playground brands. So what are the certain product types that they have? So what are those brands that they're seeing reoccurring come up as they're doing this initial search? And then you, as the brand, what are some things that you could be doing? So the three things we've listed here in this search begins process are content planning and strategy, influencer identification, and purchase intent. So with your content planning and strategy, this is really crucial in terms of marketing efforts as to where you're going to be pushing your content, when you're pushing your content, what is actually in the content, what is featured on it. So where it could be maybe on these niche forums and blogs where a lot of parents are going to write reviews around the various playgrounds, maybe that should be where you're pushing your content onto these niche forums and blogs. When you're pushing your content, you can see through social data what time of day are parents engaging in this conversation. So maybe it's around 8 p.m. once the kids are put to bed. Maybe that's when they're kind of doing these searches and asking these questions or writing reviews. So maybe that's the time of day you want to push content out. So you're really targeting those parents as your audience. And then obviously what's featured on the content. So what's really drawing to the eye? Is it a price point? Is it an age range? Is it how easy you can put together this playground? So that's the kind of things you have to think of when you're planning your content strategy. Influencer identification is crucial and something that's coming up a lot now with brands. So whether it's identifying influencers so they can push your brand name out more to reach a higher impact, a larger audience, or if those influencers are actually the demographic that you're looking to target. So influencer identification is great for pushing advocates, but also seeing who you're looking to target your content to. So is it those parents like Bill and Betty that I discussed earlier, or maybe it's grandparents that are looking around the holidays to purchase their grandkids something special. So seeing kind of who your audience is and identifying those influencers so you're tailoring your content towards that demographic. And then purchase intent. So what are people talking around purchase intent? So this is where you can really use keyword searches around I'm wanting to buy a playground, I'm needing to buy, looking to buy, seeing kind of when those people are having conversations around the purchase intent cycle. So when is it occurring? Maybe it's seasonal, so maybe it's during the summer, because it's nice out and the kids will be able to use the playground right away. So maybe you want to start targeting more of your content in the summer seasons, or maybe it's more towards the holidays and you want to push out some more of your content then. So seeing when people are having these purchasing conversations.
And to bring this into the Brandwatch analytics platform, so like Brit said, we want to know when and where and who the consumers are. So if we talk a little bit about where they are, where they're talking, we can look to see the top sites. So first I'm going to start in the top left corner for top sites, and we can see that much of the pie is dominated by Twitter. Sure, that might be something that you can reflect on with your brand as well. Twitter is a great platform to engage and to get content from. If we look to the second pie, though, right below it, we see that when we take Twitter away, when we exclude that page type, it opens up a completely new opportunity. So maybe we start to see smaller blogs or forums. So we're getting a different sense. Sure, we definitely want to keep Twitter in the mix of our conversation piece, but if you're looking to revitalize your content strategy or just to start to get into a more niche market, let's take a look at the layer below. So if we start to look at the top sites below Twitter, we see more of a conversation that maybe our competitors aren't necessarily in. So we can see, how does the conversation shift when we have 140 characters to a longer text area. So this is something that we can try with sites, and to know more about who the authors are. Again, it's much of the same. We look to the top right corner, we can see that we have a brand influencer around who I've chosen to focus on today, called Backyard Discovery. They're a playground company. So we have an influencer, that's great. We want to know who our brand advocates are. But if we choose to exclude just one author and we look below that chart, we see, again, it opens up just a new playground, a new area of opportunity. So now we can start to see what are individuals that maybe we just couldn't see before. So in just a few clicks, we can apply filters to either include content, or in this case, exclude, and open up new opportunities. So once we find out the who and the where, we can start to see these real examples coming to life. So some of you, I actually just watched a couple episodes last night, you may be familiar with the HBO show Girls. So let's take Girls for example. It's about a couple of young girls making their way in New York City. So with that type of demographic and who might watch this show, we could say that the brand found out through social listening that their demographic happens to find a lot of their news or fun content on a site BuzzFeed. So if we know that's where the traffic is going, that's the demographic we want to reach out to, rather than having a pop-up ad or a side banner ad, we've integrated the content into BuzzFeed. So it's more organic. Potentially the consumer clicked on the BuzzFeed article because they thought it was more organic. It was just part of their nature in going to that website. But now we've very subtly planted the brand into an area of conversation that just feels like it's more around the readership rather than it is around the show itself. So just an idea of how you can get that content strategy once you start to know who your authors are, the demographics, and where they go natively.
This next example that we're going to be pinpointing is a very well-known brand and is in households all across the nation and globally as well. So the brand that we're going to be looking at here is a great example of how Barbie did a whole rebranding effort based on consumers' conversations online. So they saw that who are the niche people, who is the audience having the conversation around Barbie? It seemed to be a lot of parents, specifically moms, showing how Barbie is having a negative effect towards their daughters and in the concern of body image. So obviously the previous Barbie doll was a slender, tall doll that may have not have hit expectations around a young girl's impressionable brains. So this is just a little clip we're going to show you around how Barbie did a great job in listening to those online consumer conversations in the full rebranding effort.
Of course, it was inspired by what we're seeing on social media about Barbie. You know, is she really know what's happening in the world today? She seems a little out of touch. Of course, it was driven by moms and saying, like, I don't think that that Barbie really speaks to me. And millennial parents, more so probably than any generation of parents, are really concerned about what brands signify in their household. I think some of the things that parents were saying about Barbie is that she might be a bad role model for girls, that she represents an unrealistic body type. There are lots of theories around why Barbie gets so much criticism, the same reason that women in general get so much criticism.
Some of it is valid, you know, if this is a doll that...
So that was just a brief clip. Hopefully you guys were able to see some insight of how they went through a full rebranding effort, but that was an article from Time. It's a really great piece, and I recommend you look into it further and watch the full video. But as you can see, it just showed how important for millennial parents and what brands are signifying in their households. So it was interesting to kind of see how Barbie used those conversations online to do a full rebranding effort. So now that Bill and Betty have begun their search, they found that initial data set. Now this official first moment of truth, which we've been talking about, is begun. So what are Bill and Betty doing? They're seeing what price ranges are out there. They're also seeing some product comparisons. So maybe one swing set has a sandbox while another has a rock climbing wall. So what are these things? What are these components that are part of the playground that the kids are going to be more attracted to? What is the package appearance? So just like what you're placing in your content, it should also be just as important as what you're featuring on your actual packaging. So is it kids having fun? Is it a certain age range that fits your children's ages? Is it a safety hazard that they've specified, or is it ease of putting together? I know that's something that's huge for parents if they want to be able to put it together. Maybe that's something that you can highlight on your packaging. And also, or is the packaging, is it going to be online? Is it in store? So where to buy it to is what they're looking for. Maybe Bill and Betty just want to order online, get it delivered to the house, or do they actually want to drive to the store and pick it up themselves? So then what you and as a brand can be doing with social data to affect a lot of these pinpoints of this first moment of truth is the three things we've highlighted are localization, packaging strategy, and market research. So localization, so again, where do you want to place your products? How do you want to get it into the hands of the consumer? Do you want to, is it going to be in cities, or is it going to be in the suburbs? Maybe you see that a lot more people in suburbs are purchasing your products or talking about buying a playground because they have more space available to them versus cities. Or even the comparison of seeing where geographically conversations are occurring in the north versus the south. Obviously in the south, it's a lot warmer all year round. So people may be willing to purchase a playground any time of year, while in the north it's definitely seasonal and maybe only in the summer months that parents are having those conversations. So localizing where and when your packages and products should be. Then packaging strategy, again, this is where you want to highlight on the packaging itself, maybe the ease of putting together. And also the packaging, how do you want to be delivered? Do you want, again, can it be delivered online? Do you want people to come to the store and actually be able to see it in person? So what do you want to highlight on your packaging that will really draw the consumer's eye? So seeing what conversations that people are having as being important to them. And then general just market research, which obviously I think is effective for social data in all phases of this purchasing cycle. But obviously you can see here kind of through market research is find out who your audience is, what qualities are people looking for in their playground, what areas are they willing to buy in or most likely looking to buy in. So that's a general market research. So you can create more of a white space query around the playground industry as a whole to just see what the general themes occurring across that conversation are.
So to put this into Brandwatch perspective, here we've got a chart that's breaking down United States and where the company I referenced earlier, Backyard Discovery, has a lot of traction across the different states. So we can see that states like Florida, Illinois, New Jersey, Ohio, maybe where we have more space than we would in Manhattan, where Brit and I are based. So we can start to gain some insights around where the conversation tends to take place. Like Brit said, though, we could do the reverse with market research. So rather than having a query or a search that focuses on the brand itself, perhaps we could create a chart that looks more around just a general discussion of playgrounds, of swing sets, and we can see where there's a comparison of the brand as it stands within the general market, and then where are the opportunities that we don't see the brand reference as much, we see our competitors there. So this chart you can build between the X, the Y axis, and the breakdown by. If you're in Brandwatch right now, it's just changing out, looking at either the X axis or the breakdown by, looking to see if we're changing it to a state's perspective. So this is one level that we can go. The next level, again around localization and around market research, is going to be a geotagged look. So this is our geotagged map. This would be in the component structure for maps, and you can add this to any portion of your dashboard. When you visualize this piece, you're looking at exactly where tweeters were when they tweeted. So to get down to the exact street level can be very, very impressive and intelligent, especially if you're looking more around the idea of social selling. So in this instance, we have Corey, who's talking about how they would love to donate a swing set from Backyard Discovery to their school and watch them play. So we could take a look to see where that school is. Maybe we can take a look to see where the local retailer is. Maybe there's a new opportunity for brand CSR here. So when we get down to how granular we can with the location data, it really opens you up to engage in a different perspective with the consumer. Like I said, the localization piece, if you want to direct them to the nearest retailer, or you start to see if there's any type of data analysis that you couldn't get without this level of granularity. Here we're going to bring it into two prime examples of looking at packaging strategy like Brit referenced earlier. So I'm going to talk about Festina watches. This is a prime example of using the differentiator as the product strategy, as the packaging strategy. So you want to put right in the direct view of the consumer exactly what makes your product stand out from other products in a saturated market. In the room alone right now, we're both wearing watches, and I'm sure many of you are too. So what made you purchase that watch? Well, in this example, Festina watches, they are a waterproof watch. And sure, there's many waterproof watches out there, but by knowing their consumers and knowing that this is a high selling point for their brand, they package their watches in distilled water. So they are really putting their money where their mouth is and saying exactly that their differentiator piece is going to be exactly what the consumer is. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, and we can use this now as a great selling point.
The example of Neiman Marcus is a little different and kind of focuses more around localization with your consumers. So Neiman Marcus recently implement these various systems within their stores that actually, if someone has downloaded the Neiman Marcus app, it will notify them of any in-store sales that are going on, in-store events. So these markers around the store are actually pinging the consumers while they're directly in the store of any other events that are occurring or sales occurring within the store. So this is a great example of how Neiman Marcus, they've already made the effort of, the consumers have already made the effort of getting to the store, their foot's in the door, but now Neiman Marcus wanted to find a way of how can they continue to engage with the consumer while they're in the store, get them to maybe do some more purchasing. So this is a great way of how they're using these individuals' exact location to pinpoint that they are in the store. Now that they're here, let's let them know the sales and other events that may influence them to further purchases. So now that Bill and Betty have decided they have purchased their swing set, they have a price set, so now this is the full experience and post-purchase phase. So they, again, as a consumer, have made the purchase. They're doing additional research, possibly for what they may have missed. They're reading and sharing their experiences, whether that's on blogs, maybe they're sharing it with other parents in the neighborhood. And there's also always that reconsideration factor. So did they make the right choice for their kids? Is it all the kids dreamed of and wanted? So that's what the consumers are doing post any purchase, is they're kind of going through these phases. So even though once the sale has been made, you as the brand still need to be involved with the consumer. That's huge, and I think something that a lot of brands miss out on a lot of opportunities with. They think now that the purchase has been made, the product is in the consumer's hand, that their job is done, and that's definitely not the case. So you as a consumer, the few things you can focus on post that purchase is customer service, customer feedback, your marketing campaigns, and promotions. So for customer service, I think, as every brand is aware, I think responsiveness and timeliness is huge. I know me as a consumer, whenever I have an issue, if someone gets back to me really quickly, whether that's on Twitter, on the phone, I find myself to be more of an advocate for that brand in terms of that responsiveness. Customer feedback, you'll see a lot of reviews, whether it's around the playground or any other product people are buying. I tend to find, especially in looking at social data on a daily basis, that this feedback is definitely on a scale of absolutely love or hate. So I find that consumers are more prone to give feedback and write reviews, whether they are on a scale of absolutely loving the product and the brand, or they actually have some sort of hatred for it. So there's definitely a fine line between those scales details of when those customer feedback. So it's good to review that, see what flaws you have, see what consumers are really enjoying about your brand, about your product. And then marketing campaigns. So marketing campaigns obviously are beneficial prior to purchase to get consumers to buy your products, but also post-purchase marketing campaigns are something that really drives consumers to come back to your brand and purchasing your product. So whether you're targeting buyers or even targeting non-buyers, you can create campaigns that say, hey, it's been a while since you shopped with us. We'd love to give you a discount, or any sort of seasonal campaigns that can be launched maybe around the holidays or birthdays. These are also promotions that you can do with your consumers to show them love and definitely make them more of a brand advocate.
So to bring in the last Brandwatch piece, to talk about that post-consumer conversation, it doesn't end with just purchasing. We know that between the second moment of truth, whether it was the old model or the new model, it all revolves around what was the experience of the consumer. So the sale doesn't really end there. And using Brandwatch, we can target specific keywords. We can look at pronouns, verbs, and the context of your brand, the market, or competitor to see that post-purchase conversation. So in this instance, I've created a search string within my query that looks for I or we within 5 keywords in front of purchased or bought, and package that together with brackets to say within 10 keywords in front of backyard discovery. And I could have gone on to include other types of context terms, maybe to include their Twitter handle or other types of own sites or different ways that you might be able to reference the brand, but this is a great starting point. So here we're looking at, we purchased a backyard discovery set. So that's what my query string looks for. And if we go on to the forum post, we see that the experience hasn't been 100% positive. So this is now going to give us ideas for how we can continue to innovate on the product, continue to change our content strategy, maybe perhaps even start to understand that post-consumer strategy point from the more negative experience. So there's a lot that we can still discover within the post-purchase phase, and by using different pronouns, verbs, whether this is in the post-purchase, but also to give you an idea back to the purchase intent. So if we change this out to say I or we are thinking about or interested in or could be looking at, so then we get from the first point of contact, the stimulus, the ZMOT, all the way now to the post-purchase. So just to give you some brainstorm ideas on that piece. Also, to talk more about customer feedback and customer service, I'm sure many of you have gotten this in your inbox as well. So here we can see examples of feedback. So tell everyone what you think and get 10% off. It's been a while since your last purchase. Shop today and get 20% off. So just because that sale has closed, we want to start and initiate that cycle again. We want the consumer to come back with that deal, that catch, what's going to get them back in. Or like we have here in the tell everyone what you think and get 10% off phase, this is going back to that stimulus point or that ZMOT point. So if we're looking to our peers, we're looking to influencers, feedback and reviews are a big part of that. So it's a call to action and also benefits the brand and the consumer. The Wendy's commercial, this is something as well, in the US at least, that we've seen. The brand is quite literally putting our tweets right in front of us. So they're saying that we've heard what you said, we started this campaign, we wanted to see how well it did, and we can see that the results are coming in extremely positive. For $4 meals, actually the greatest thing of all time. I mean, you couldn't pay for anything better. So by adding that into a commercial, we can see that the consumer and the brand are much more aligned.
And the final example is a real life example, actually from my live Twitter account. So there you can see my lovely Twitter handle there. But this is actually a direct customer service issue that I was having with my Verizon internet account. So this is direct communication that I had with the Verizon support team. So prior to this, though, I had actually called Verizon and waited on the phone for a good 20 minutes. I get it, call centers can be busy. People have issues with their internet all the time. But after waiting 20 minutes, I was like, I work in social. Why don't I just tweet them? So once I tweeted them, within 2 minutes, I got a response. And it was take a photo of your modem, like we'll let you know what the problem is. And within less than 10 minutes, 5 minutes, they were able to solve the issue. And so that made me from more of a brand detractor of having to wait those 20 minutes on the phone to being more of a brand advocate, to seeing that responsiveness and how I was helped in real time through social data and through social has just been a huge point of customer service, and how more brands need to really start engaging with their consumers through social and on Twitter, especially in a customer service aspect of the business. So to recap and do some takeaways around today's webinar and a lot of the presentation is, again, you as a brand can influence that moment of truth. In today's world, consumers have the option to so many different products and brands on a daily basis. They're faced with these, the decision of what drink do I want to buy, what shoes do I want to buy, and I think there's so much more data available to consumers in terms of making the accurate and best decision. So whether it's reviews, word of mouth, there's so much data available, but this is how you as a brand can really influence that moment of truth, that split-second decision of why people are choosing your brand, your product over the competitors. Keep the consumer at the forefront. Again, I said this at the beginning, but a lot of brands maybe focus on what the market's doing, what their competitors are doing. And I really just think if you stay ahead of the consumer, put the consumer first, that will truly make your brand stand out and make your product sell. So I always think the consumers are the ones that are influencing the purchase. They're the ones that will show how effective a brand is doing. So they're the ones that are making the creating trends in the market. So making sure the consumer always comes first, because they can't spell they without you. So like I had said, you can't spell, you can't work as a brand if you're having no consumer interaction. So your brand wouldn't be where it is without that consumer. And then the final point is social data is an always-on approach. People are tweeting every second of the day, posting on Facebook, Instagramming, forums and blogs, writing reviews. So social data is so constant. So the time to insight starts literally right now. So again, I hope you have found kind of some of the key takeaways to be influential and to be helpful to you guys. It's been a pleasure for Kelly and I to present this to you. So if you guys have any questions, now is a great time that we are going to be hosting our Q&A.
Great. So while we have more questions come in, we do have a question. My stats in social media are completely distorted by bots from top sites. Any automatic algorithms to identify and exclude them from the analysis, or only manual work with user posts? Great question. This is very common, especially around larger brands. So robots, top sites, spammers, they're going to be constant. There's no way that we can build any type of program that's just going to automatically get them out of social data. They're always going to exist. So this is a question that I get quite often. And what I advise is, rather than excluding individual sites or individual authors, there's always going to be another spammy site or another spammy author. So your exclusion list in your original search string is going to get so lengthy that it's going to be near impossible to continuously clean up. There's always going to be another creative bot out there that's going to get through the cracks. So what I'd recommend is looking around the themes and what they're talking about. So usually with robots, we can tell that they're robots because the language doesn't make sense. Initially, it might look okay, but if we start to take a look at the language that they're using, the grammar's not correct, they're a mix of letters and numbers, they're linking out to the same coupon or deal site, or they're just trying to get you to a third party. And so generally, you can start to see a theme in what they're saying, and that mix of just general spammy conversation. So I have a couple examples in my head, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. So look for the themes. Are there links that they're linking out to? So if you use Brandwatch, I'd recommend using the links operator. That's going to look for a full website in any shortened package. So if you have a robot and it's pushing, let's say, the Apple Watch, lots of spam that can come in around such a broad product like that. So if you see that it's going to some third-party site, take that full link, which is a mix of letters and numbers and everything in between, make that into your links operator, and that way you can exclude links to that full site, and that should help you take out a large chunk of spam without having to go through individual authors. Another key would be looking at the mix of special characters. So if the dollar sign is being used or the British pound sign is being used quite a lot in the reseller conversation and you're not interested in that, I'd use something like the raw operator, and that operator is going to be specific to eliminating special characters or looking for them. In this case, you'd want to eliminate them. So to say not raw dollar sign, maybe some additional context terms around that, but that's another way that you're going to eliminate that general theme rather than a specific author or site. So let me know if that answers your question, but we have a couple more coming in.
Yeah, definitely. And just to reiterate one of Kelly's points, like she said, that general theme, you'll find that the industry that you work in, there will be some of those reoccurring themes. Like a lot of the pharma clients I work with tends to be a lot of resellers, obviously. So that's a huge focal point in terms of irrelevant data that they're going to want to remove, or whether it's job postings. So those are kind of the types of conversations that per your industry you might be more prone to seeing. So the next question that we have is, what are your thoughts on approaching social influencers? So this is a great question, and I think this comes up a lot with my clients. And I think the first thing I always ask is, how do you deem someone as being an influencer? Do you have certain metrics around around an influencer, such as they have a certain cred score, or maybe they have a certain number of followers on Twitter? So these are the metrics and benchmarks that you can filter by within Brandwatch, so you can really hone in on that specific set of influencers that meet your criteria. So these criteria and these metrics that you're identifying influencers as, this can be part of your overall social strategy. So in terms of approaching them, it's interesting. I think if you have maybe, if you're looking for more impressionable like stars or celebrities to help promote your brand, I think having them engage in social is definitely something that you want. I think is something to be beneficial to be aware of if you're coming in contracts with a brand personnel that's going to be representing the brand as a whole. So then the best to approach other social influencers is really just to kind of, again, seeing where they're engaging, who they're engaging with, and trying to tailor your content towards who they're engaging with, who and what they're engaging in, what types of conversations. So definitely within Brandwatch, you can also see out of that influential list of authors, you can see who are they being influenced by, who are they influencing. So that's definitely something that kind of see what are the main themes within those influencers and how you can tap into that through your content and through the products that you're putting out. So definitely social influencers are people that can really represent the brand well, share their thoughts, and kind of increase that brand advocacy across a larger audience.
Perfect. And the next question. So could I recap the first slides I mentioned of how Brandwatch can help with this search phase? So going back to the visualization piece of the top sites versus top authors, and to Brit's points around who are your top influencers, or who are your general audience, where are they talking, and when are they talking? It's a great question, and there's a couple different lenses that we can use to get to those top sites or top authors for this search phase. So in my example, what I had done was created a query that focuses just on the brand backyard discovery. So I created a query that looks for the brand name, a few of their social platforms like Twitter, and a couple other hashtag tracking, and their general domain. So that was the lens I was looking at. From that, I created a dashboard, and in a couple of the different default dashboard templates you can use, there's some already existing charts. As a side note, I think charts are one of the most powerful pieces of Brandwatch, and I love to really integrate them into my training. So a key takeaway, if you want to challenge yourself with charts, that's how you're going to get some really fantastic pieces. And to that visualization point, looking at the top sites. So if we saw that pie chart, a majority of the conversation was looking at Twitter, which is fantastic, and that's great to know as a brand that that's where you tend to resonate. But if you're in Brandwatch right now, take a look at the filter toggle. So filters are on every visualization piece, and there's dozens that you can choose from. Open the filters, and this one was just looking at excluding a page type. So you're taking that first layer away. So we're excluding Twitter, and we're seeing everything else that lies under the surface. We could do that again. Let's say that we see, I think it was review sites were having a lot of conversation. So we could take Twitter and review sites out of the conversation and see more around blogs, forums, news sites, general sites. So you can keep adding and adding until you're just down to no results. So the number of filters you can put on are really endless, but that's going to be looking at the top sites piece. The top authors are going to be looking at who's having that content. So it's the same in the sense that I'm looking to remove an individual, just like I was looking to remove Twitter as a conversation source. So this time what I've done is I've added the individual at hand, who I believe is Bird BB52, so maybe a great advocate to take a look at later, but I've added that user to an author list. So an author list is one of the lists we have in Brandwatch. It's user defined, and you continue to add authors to that list, whether you want to focus on them, just see what they're talking about with your brand, or what I've chosen to do is exclude that author list. So now I can exclude that author list across any of my different visualization pieces to see how the rest of my audience besides this user is talking about. So that might happen if you're a brand that has a lot of giveaways or a lot of promotions, or you run Twitter parties. So we can see authors come up dozens of times. And it's not to say that their content isn't something we want to take a look at. We're just giving this now a different lens. We want to see who are new people to reach out to, or maybe just have fewer things to say, but are going to really give us the ticket into understanding product value, product innovation, looking for content. Just to touch on the last piece, another way that you're able to search for conversation, it goes back to looking at conversation from a pronoun and verb perspective. So if you've got a query that's looking at your brand, try a search that looks at I or we within the context of thinking about, interested in, thought about, thinking about, all the different variations, verb tenses. See how that resonates within the context of your brand. That's another great way and very powerful to search. And like I said, if you're looking outside of your brand, maybe you're looking more around the market itself, so around swing sets, playgrounds, see how people are talking about thinking about a playground rather than thinking about your brand. And that's also going to give you some valuable key takeaways that you wouldn't have seen because your lens is more narrow around your brand rather than the market.
The next question we have is asking us to tell us a little bit more around our location data, and also detailed the best ways to visualize location within Brandwatch. So this is a great question. There are many different ways of how you can visualize location and how you can input it within the platform. So at the query level, we do have various Boolean operators that you can include in your search string to narrow in to just see mentions from a specific location. So the various operators we have is we can narrow it down to a specific continent, specific country, state, county, town, city. So you can use these various operators to just see mentions that are being generated from those specific locations. If you don't want to include it at the query level, also within our dashboards, there are various filters where you can actually just filter in your larger data set to just see mentions that are coming again from one of those specific locations. So we also have something called location lists. So if you want to have multiple locations and kind of see what the conversation is coming from maybe, let's say, the Northeast or the Southeast, that's how we can really drill into mentions from the local areas. Then ways that you can visualize it is we do have a few different components. We have a specific mentions map component that actually shows you a map of a global map, and highlights where the most volume of conversation is occurring globally. And then we also, I think Kelly showed a quick screenshot of that specific geotagged mentions map. So that's actually specifically with Twitter data. When people are tweeting and they've turned on the capability of people actually pinpointing where exactly they're tweeting from, even down to the street level, that's where we can pull in those mentions, and you can actually see those verbatim mentions and where they're being geotagged. So we have that mentions map. It allows you to zoom in again to that street level and see where globally, again, people are geotagging where they're tweeting from. So this data is coming from a lot of on Twitter. It's a lot of where people are saying in their bios what city they're in, what time zone they're in, where they're geotagging and actually verbatim tweeting from directly, and then with locations for other websites, so where their APIs are based, where these people are stating as being based, or where they're what cities they say they're in. So yep,
and we've got one more question. So our question is, how do we look at natural conversation by excluding retweets, blogs, and news? Great question. So One piece, if we are just going to be looking at the page type, I'd recommend looking at the filter toggle for sentiment and page type, that drop down, and you can exclude the different page types, the different buckets we have, like blogs, forums, news sites. So that's one quick way to be able to take out just a bulk of websites. There's also another list called site lists. It acts just like the author list and how I was able to remove that one individual. So a site list is also user defined. You can add to sites in the dashboard, or you can upload known sites that you're not interested in. The great reason to use a site list is to say that maybe I'm not interested in those sites, but Brit is interested in those sites. By having a list, it only alters the dashboard, not the query. So the query can still resonate with many different teammates, but your list can just exclude sites that you don't want to see. So that's more targeted sites rather than just a blanket statement like to remove all blogs. The last piece, to exclude retweets, I'd recommend creating a rule. So a rule is another fantastic component within Brandwatch. It's in the tools panel. If you navigate there, that's also where you'll see author, site, and location lists. So rules act like a query search within your query. They're going to be constructed the same at looking at keyword searches as using operators. So you could write a rule that looks for retweets. I would recommend looking for retweets because that's going to give you more flexibility than saying you don't want to see something. Rules can be looked at as filters to show data or to exclude data. So write a rule that looks for retweets. So raw RT, because we want retweet to be capital R, capital T. That's the nature of retweets, and raw is the operator that looks at capitalization. So raw RT within a few keywords, so to use the proximity operator, near / 1F or 2F. We saw that in a couple of my slides. And then raw @ mentions of your handle. So that's a little bit more complex. I would say just to start, test out RT in your rule search, see what type of data that comes back, and then exclude that rule from your dashboard. So there's many different ways that we can segment conversation. That's a great topic to further explore. So I definitely recommend starting with the RT and seeing how you're able to exclude that rule.
Perfect. And I think that's all the questions that we're going to be taking today. So there is one final point that we want to touch on before we end today's webinar, and that is our lovely user, Now You Know Brandwatch user conference that we're going to be hosting in Chicago, May 9th to the 11th. So as you can see from this slide here, it's 2 days, 2 extraordinary tracks. So Kelly's going to be speaking more to the training track that we're going to be offering at the conference, and I'll be speaking more as to, if you visit this website, nyk.brandwatch.com, you'll see a full list of our brand partner speakers that are going to be at the event. That are going to be talking about their use cases, how they're utilizing Brandwatch. So we have a great list of clients that are going to be speaking, such as 3M, Wells Fargo, Toyota, Bank of America, Dell, as well as some of our agency clients as well, like Weber Shandwick, GPG, and then also one of our partners, Converse Social, will also be there as a speaker throughout the conference. So it'll be really great to see how these brands are utilizing social data, how they're specifically using Brandwatch, and so there'll be a lot of great thought leadership conversations occurring. So the other track that we'll be offering
is around the masterclass. So that's going to be training that runs parallel to those keynote speakers. The training is going to be great for newcomers, so those that are unfamiliar with Brandwatch, they want to get going within Brandwatch platform, and also for our more experienced users. So we're going to have some introductory sessions mixed with challenges. All of it's hands-on though, and it does run 2 full days in accordance with the key speakers. So a great place to really immerse yourself hands-on in the platform. Not only is it going to be me, it's going to be our whole New York team and our Brighton team. So you're just going to be surrounded by trainers. It's a great place to ask us questions, give away prizes, and just have fun with data.
Yep, so we'd love for you guys to make it, and again, feel free to visit the website or reach out if you guys have any questions about it. Hope you guys enjoyed today's webinar, and thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to having you for future Brandwatch webinars.
Thanks all.
Thank you.